My guest on Under the Skin is Trudy Makhaya, newly appointed economic advisor to President Ramaphosa. We wrestle with questions of growth and investment at a time of growing anger at inequality. Trudy Makhaya, welcome to Under the Skin.
Thank you.
The moment when you were asked to be economic advisor to President Cyril Ramaphosa, who was there and what was said?
It was over the phone, so
Okay.
It wasn't that, dramatic. But, the president made the phone call and we spoke. And I undertook to think about it, and then I got back to him once again over the phone.
Yes.
A week later, and so that's how the conversation and the discussion went.
I assume being the president's advisor does include telling him things he doesn't really want to hear.
It does. It's still early days, but I can imagine that, there'll be many difficult trade-offs, as is often the case when it comes to economics, and we'd have to have difficult discussions.
Because I understand one of your favorite poems is Alice Walker's Be Nobody's Darling. Is that partly how you see your role, that you're meant to be, to some degree, a contrarian, somebody putting the difficult questions, suggesting that it's not simply done just by saying you're going to do it?
Yes, I think it's a very interesting quote and also important in the context of work and organizations, because I think the tendency is often to get along and try to say, what will maintain peace. But in many instances, if you are accommodating beyond what is appropriate, it ends up creating difficulties further down the line. So I think it's better to have the tough conversations up front.
What are you expecting to be some of the toughest areas of conversation? We
have to be careful that we don't repeat some of the mistakes of the past.
Which were?
So if we think about, the post-1994 trajectory, we had some really great economic policy from 94 onwards. The kind of policy that ensured us that we became investment grade at all three ratings agencies, that got us some FDI and investment flows into the economy. And it generated jobs, but it didn't really dent inequality. It didn't dent the unemployment rate. So the labor force was growing faster than employment growth. And so I'm very mindful of that in what we do, we have to push for growth, but we have to ensure that it's inclusive and it addresses all of those other issues. And I think there might be instances where the tendency might be, let's go for growth and the rest will take care of itself.
Yes.
And I think somebody needs to always be a reminder that actually the rest doesn't always just fall into place. I think trickle-down economics has proven to be an illusion, and we have to be very deliberate into how we go about when we pursue growth.
I would have thought most investors are saying, what's the bottom line? What am I going to make? How do you imagine those conversations going, and what do you see as your key part in those?
When it comes to social justice, I think a lot of people understand the South African story and how we're still dealing with a legacy of exclusion. I mean, these are literally the words of the World Bank, which just released a report about South Africa's incomplete transition. What they call an incomplete transition. They call it incomplete because economically we still have a lot of people who are outside economic participation, outside the mainstream economy. And they talk about different kinds of exclusion, from productive assets, from opportunities in the marketplace, from education. So, I think it's understood globally what we're working with.
When you say people understand, though, I want to push you a little bit on that, because they may understand it as, in the old days, they came and built a school for Nelson Mandela. In these days, they'll give money to the Tumamina Fund. But fundamentally, don't investors think profit, bottom line, and that there's really not much that they're going to do about the fundamental way in which they run their businesses unless we make them?
So they do think profit, but generally there's an understanding that your shareholders are very important, but your general stakeholders are also an important dimension of creating value. I think it's also, we would obviously welcome all investment that is appropriate and sensible. But in terms of active pursuit, I think there would be a sense that those investors who get it, those who are concerned more about impact in general, would obviously get a lot of attention and more active engagement.
So when you say investors who get it, how would you describe that? I mean, is that a contractual thing where you say you're going to operate in a way that creates X number of jobs for this amount of investment? Or is it just a feeling you get?
So it's very hard to be overly prescriptive about this, because once again, you also can't, you want people to pursue opportunities and for them to be unfettered in some ways and even show you impacts that you're not aware of as a plan. I don't think you can really be a government planner that goes out and says, you must create 1,000 jobs here. At the same time, I think it's important when we tell our story and in the investment case to say that we are looking for investment in sectors that generate growth and profile those effectively. We're always talking about agriculture, about tourism. And so I think we have to be very deliberate in profiling opportunities in those sectors that are jobs rich. It's not so much about somebody coming and say, I want to work in the space economy, and you've got, the square kilometer array, and I want to do that here. And then we say, but you have to give so many jobs. They can do that, but we can also proactively say, we want opportunities. We're going to make it easy for you to train our scientists. We're going to make it easy for you to empower local supply. So I think a lot of it, we think, investors must do this, but we should enable it and make it easy for them to do all of those other things.
You've said in a previous interview that your biggest weakness is that you are not patient. This must be a very, very patient game. Are you having to change, or are you going to get everyone else to hurry up?
I think at the beginning, get everybody else to hurry up.
Okay, how's that going?
Because to mobilize, all of this investment and all of this interest, I think we're competing with many other countries. There's so much that we need to also take, advantage of this positive sentiment we're experiencing right now. At the same time, I think we do need to build a patient investor relations capability as a country, where we do have trusted relationships with key investors that we keep nurturing. It's a 5-year journey in terms of raising the money, but also hopefully these will be investments that are 20, 30, 40 years down the line. So I certainly, in terms of capital, I think patient capital is the best kind of capital. And so there's a lot of institution building work we have to do, that you can't really hurry.